Fine. All right, go.
Sweet. So I'm Nakira. I am with Alaska Village Initiatives, and Rochelle over there, she's my boss. But I guess my background in hydroponics, I think, let's see, like me a long time ago, early high school, middle school even, like I started to learn like what is hydroponics and did some kind of basic science project things with it. So that's where my interest started. And then I worked for, if you've heard of City Farms, Nick Bowman, he produced all the basil that you'll see in Fred Meyer and all around. I worked for him for a little while, and I did a lot of kind of just some of the labor on some more of the like not industrial but commercialization of hydroponics, like how do we actually turn this into a business that makes money and can be sustainable. And then I also did some modeling for like 3D modeling engineering stuff. I'm an agricultural engineer for him on how to streamline that process a little bit more and how to make hydroponics a little bit more technically advanced in some ways, make that process that can work. And then after that, I did a little bit more on the research, intimate knowledge with plants in hydroponics things. So if you know Space Farming Institute, if you know Lori over there, I spent like a couple years just kind of hanging out with her and doing plant things. And so that's where my hydroponics background comes from, that in kind of more commercialization side, and then a little bit more on the like actually experiencing plants and all their different systems. So now here at AVI, we have a grant. We're running a few different hydroponic systems, running some different trials, looking at economic efficiency and hydroponic sustainability. So.
Cool. Thanks, Nakira. And welcome to our new folks who just joined in, Sarah, and I'm not sure who Kodiak's iPad is, but
it's Stu Delgado. Using Spruce Island Farms.
Oh, right. Welcome. Anyway, you can change your name on there so we have that on there.
I don't know how.
if you go to participants and then go to yours and you can change the name. It's just good for us. But thanks, Stu. I'm glad you're here. I'm Mel Sykes, and it's coordinating this. Welcome to our initial meeting of the working group. And we were just doing a round robin of everybody introducing a little bit about themselves and how they're connected to hydroponics and what they're working on. So Kaylee, you're next on my Zoom screen.
Sure, thanks. I'm Kaylee Eller. I work for Tyona Grown with the Tyona Tribal Conservation District. We operate many different food and agriculture programs, including a couple of hydroponic systems that right now operate in Tabona School. I come from a soils background. I am not traditionally a hydroponic expert. This is my first year dipping into that. So it's a whole new world to me, and I'm learning a lot. And I also inherited a system that was used for many years. It's about 10 years old and wasn't kept up on through COVID. And so there's been a lot of just troubleshooting and learning curves for me this year. But we have an old, similar to the Sunny Pro systems that VH Hydroponics sell now. It's a much older one. It's 175 amps NFT system. And that had a Blue Lab doser that also is 10 years old and is no longer in production anymore. And so we're working on a lot of upgrades still so that we can get our automatic dosing back up, which is important for us, being off the road system. And we're also having some problems with the slope of the trays and water not getting to all the plants, that the plants at the bottom are doing great and the ones at the top aren't getting a lot of water. So we're still troubleshooting that stuff. And then we have 3 lettuce grow towers that the school uses, one for science experiments, and then we do production on the other ones. And one thing I'm really thinking about for next year is just planning and using resources better in terms of what crops we're growing where. So that in the NFT systems, we'll really focus more on maximizing the space there. And then we have some like crazy tomatoes and zucchinis growing out of the lettuce grow towers, and maybe we'll try to set up a different system for tomatoes, because they kind of take over and then you can't access everything else within the lettuce grow towers. So really trying to use what the systems for what they're meant for, and try to find better ways to grow tomatoes and maybe some strawberries in the future as well.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you're here, Kaylee. I know you have a lot to share with everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
So I'll move on and go to Sarah. You're next on my screen. Thanks, move
Hi,
on.
everybody. My name is Sarah, and I work at Alaska Seeds of Change. I am the assistant manager. For those of you that don't know, Alaska Seeds of Change is a vocational training program for transition age youth from 13 to 23. The main tool that we use to teach vocational skills is a vertical hydroponic system. So we've got a large greenhouse that we got with a grant, and it's set up with the zip grow system. We have right now we have 3 zones, and each zone has its own like reservoir of water that we feed the nutrients through to our towers. When we have our youth working in the system, we have them helping us look out for anything from too much algae to a bug problem or a leak. And by doing that, they're kind of gaining some of the skills that they can use in any other workforce, whether it is in hydroponics or in ag. We also help them with communication and other things like that. Just basically trying to give them this general skills that they're going to need at any workforce, and hopefully the skills that they can use to improve their lives and set themselves up well. I like to think about what we do as what schools should have taught us. And we get to do it in a cool space with plants and with hydroponics. We also do a little bit outside, but that's the main vehicle for our training and kind of what brings people in. I'm also on the board for the Food Policy Council. I always forget to say that.
And you're the partner with me for Food Policy Council working group lead. So we're coordinating, I guess. That's one of our duties at Food Policy Council.
Yeah. I didn't hear what the prompt was for the intro. Was that good?
Oh, it's awesome. Exactly.
All right, cool.
That's exactly. We're just sharing what we do and how we're connected to hydroponics. So that was perfect. Max,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to call on you next.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Calling in from Kodiak. Max, working with Robbie at Cali, the Kodiak Archipelago Leadership Institute, as the Sustainable Food Systems Coordinator. So helping out 5 producers, the 6 producers around the island with small scale community run growing operations. Becky and Duke on the call are 2 of the farms. So we all started, Lutic Grown team started learning about hydroponics, I want to say 3 years ago. I joined the team about 2 years ago, and we're doing some NFT cabinets. I think we got like 10 of the cabinets from VHH scattered around the island. A CGS container unit with NFT, some bubble buckets, some Dutch buckets, some small platform units. So all sorts of different things. We're just getting into the vine crops and the Beto buckets. So just helping out, and I do a little at home, but also get to jump around the island and help out the different farms. So just here to learn and share and connect with you all.
Thanks, Max. That's great. Glad you're here. I'm going to call on Rochelle next. Are you?
She
you
stepped
still-
out, but she'll
She
be back.
stepped
in a
out.
couple minutes.
Okay, well then I will bounce over to Becky.
Hi, so I'm Becky and I live here in Kodiak and I work in hydroponics here with Mullock Farms. And I have been doing hydroponics now for about a year and a half, and I am looking forward to learning more through this course. So nice to meet everybody.
Glad you're here. Absolutely. And Duke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, my name is Duke Delgado, Spruce Island Farms. I've been working with hydroponics just a little over 2 years now. Like Max said, we have the NST cabinets. We have two of those, and Dutch buckets. Gave us some good spa buckets. I converted 6 of them into the Dutch buckets because it's a little easier to maintain the nutrition levels. So, yeah, I'm excited. It works great. I have tomatoes going right now, lettuce, parsley, basil, tatsui. I got some Asian cabbage started. They'll go into the cabinet next week. They're about ready to go in. So, and tomatoes. Tomatoes really work well in hydroponics. So, yeah, excited.
Cool. Robbie, can you go or do you want to wait till it's less acting up? You're silent. I still can't hear.
So I'm Robbie Townsend Bennell. I'm the executive director of the Kodiak Archipelago Leadership Institute. I think most of you know we've been working on what's become a Lutic Grow now, starting back in 2015 with Forest Soil Farms. And my journey with hydroponics began, oh my, about 2019, 2018, when we were trying to find a more sustainable growing model for the village farms. And we're looking at how to go to year-round production, and wrote an ANA grant to bring in the vertical harvest NFT cabinets and CGS container. And then in the last year of the ANA grant, we hooked up with Dr. Tristan Hooks at the University of Arizona Controlled Environment Center, Agriculture Center in Tucson. And he came up and helped us all get going with Dutch buckets. And since then, as you've heard from Becky and Duke and Max, the team, all the farms have been expanding in different ways into various hydroponic production. And we really do see hydroponics as probably a major way to feed Alaska. We need soil farms. We want fruit trees. We want potatoes. We want rutabagas. We want cabbage. We want all that really cool Alaska grown stuff that we all know and love, barley, but we also want tomatoes and cucumbers and things like that. So in order to have that, and villages are really amazing. You know, if you look at what Duke is doing and Becky is doing, the villages are really amazing little kind of experimental growing pods. And so I'd like to see a lot more village production. I'm really, it's really cool to see what Rachel and Kia are doing over at AVI, and how do we get more of that going throughout the state in the villages. Let's tuck away Dutch buckets in every closet we can find, right? Right, Max? He's growing mushrooms in his apartment. So he's the last time I knew. So I am not a grower. Full disclosure, I'm more of a grant writer, keep the team kind of organized, that kind of thing. But really happy to see everybody here.
We're really glad you're here. Hey, Leah, do you feel you have enough you want to share?
I sent the 10-year-old outside.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, hi. I am Leah Moss. I am the Communications and Outreach Director for the Alaska Food Policy Council. I am here just in the capacity to see what you guys are up to. As this is your first meeting, the beginning of this working group, I want to make sure that I'm able to share out the work you guys are doing as you progress, and always good to know who's involved in this work. So maybe I can tap you for blogs or other content, and I'm here.
Yep. And Michelle, are you ready to share about you?
Hi, Rochelle Plummer, Agriculture Program Director for AVI. My hydroponic experience is limited. I do aquaponics. So my experience with chemical fertilizers is I depend a lot on Nakira. That's where her strong point is. I had an aquaponics system for 12 years, and I'm looking at redesigning a system and getting that up and running, and maybe comparing that to our hydroponics we have growing now. So that's the quick and dirty on me.
Awesome. Thanks, Rochelle. I'm glad you're here. So, and I'm happy to be the last one to go before we jump into a little education piece, and just talking about where we're going with this. But I'm Mel Sykes. I work at the Fairbanks Soil and Water Conservation District, and my first experience getting into hydroponics was I run an after-school program here at the schools in Fairbanks, and one of my after-school instructors was approached by one of the coordinators of the program and said, "Hey, we have this hydroponics system. Do you want to get it up and running?" And he asked me if he could do it. And I said, fine, as long as you write some curriculum and on what you're doing with the kids. And so we started doing hydroponics with after school kids with basically deep water culture systems and storage tubs and fish tanks. And it was fun and exciting enough for me as the person who runs agriculture in the classroom program in the state of Alaska to seek out more grants to write more curriculum and get some workshops for teachers to do not just hydroponics, but any kind of indoor year-round growing in their classrooms. And so we wrote a whole curriculum, which is now up on our website, free for download. And it led to a lot of exploration into other efforts with hydroponics, getting it out to communities. And right as COVID hit, we wrote a big USDA grant for Community Foods Project and magically won it. I don't know how, but we were awarded this grant, which revolved around a large hydroponic farm that was supposed to go here in Fairbanks, which didn't actually happen, but then we had the grant and we made do and kind of changed things around and learned a whole lot really fast about doing hydroponics ourselves on a larger scale. And at that time, we were working very closely with an FFA group that is down in North Pole, who really got their teeth into hydroponics and built a very large NFT system on their own, which now has gone over to one of our native high schools, Effie Cochran, and we've been working with them over the last 2 years on producing out of this one big NFT system, which has 252 plant sites for the school district here. And Scott, who was the FFA leader, now is on our staff, and he has been exploring all kinds of different hydroponic projects, different ways of doing, and he has switched over in his brain to more deep water culture because it's way easier and more efficient. And he is in the process of installing a big deep water culture at Effie this week, which will replace the NFT system, which unfortunately almost shut down the electricity at the school because it leaked onto the lights. So we've been learning lots of things, and Scott has been, that's the most exciting part is Scott has been experimenting with microbe-based fertilizers in our office. So using plant matter sort of in a compost tea situation to produce fertilizers for hydroponics without commercial fertilizers involved. And so we're really excited. At some point, we'll do a little talk about what he's doing. I'm going to get him on here and give a talk about how he set that up, and kind of, we're in the process of developing information and step-by-step instructions on how to create that, what to use. And our goal with it was helping people who have trouble getting fertilizer, especially in village situations, be able to produce fertilizer for these systems without having something shipped in that is really difficult to get. So we've been doing a whole lot. And then as a result of all our work, we've been asked by a couple of villages to come up and work with schools, because we're doing ag in the classroom and career exploration projects. So we went up to Utqiagvik in December and worked with a bunch of middle school students building hydroponic towers. And we are going up there again at the beginning of March to work with some kids from Point Lay and Wainwright. And we're doing a lot of stuff up here with it, and we're happy to share all of the neat things that we are doing with you, because that's what this group is all about. So if any of what I said or anything anybody said intrigues you and want to learn more, this is our platform to talk about it. Does anybody have any questions right now about what has been presented by any of us in the group? Now's a good time, raise your hand and ask a question of anybody who said anything during this introduction period. We'll take a few minutes for that. Want any more clarification or ideas? Y'all doing wonderful things. It's exciting. Seeing none, I wanted to give chance. If you do come up with a question, just pop it in the chat. But go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
How's it coming with figuring out, I guess, making nutritions for hydroponics? Or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Other than using commercial grade, whatever.
Well, what we have been doing is sort of using microbes we get dried microbes that you can get for a number of different things. And then we're feeding it with ground up plant material that we're growing. We've been using chickweed and microgreens to feed it, kind of like sourdough starter. And while it's feeding, then it's producing the nutrients that the plants can use. And we are just on the cusp of, we've been sort of doing a little bit of commercial fertilizer and mostly the compost tea. And we're going to start a new set of plants and just going with the nutrient tea and seeing how that works without any commercial fertilizer in it whatsoever. So it's pretty exciting. And everything that he's been using can be mailed, can be freeze dried, and we're going to start one that's based on Alaska microbes here, so that you're basically mimicking the soil with your hydroponic system with the fertilizer instead. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's exciting though. Let me know how that goes.
Well, as soon as we're in the process of writing it all up. We're just doing a lesson plan for kids on putting it together. We're taking photos. Tomorrow we're going to set up on Friday we're going down to Delta and setting one up for them, and we're going to take photos, and then we'll have a handout we can give to anybody who can just get all the pieces of it and start it on their own. We just do them in buckets. We have like a garbage can that we're putting it in, and then we use that on a certain amount of it, and then dilute it a little bit with water, and it's great. Yeah, I will definitely share that out as soon as we have it put together.
And another question, how long does it take to make your keys?
How long does it take to what?
To make your key?
Oh, It generally takes about 3 to 4 days to get it to where you could start using it with the plants. Once it's gone through a little bit of the cycle, it kind of goes through this really, like sourdough, you can get this big bubbly mass right at the beginning when you start putting all the food and everything in there. And then it kind of, they start evening out, and then it's ready to be used in there. And the different types of food you feed it will increase the nitrogen or lower the nitrogen. And he's trying to work on that part, because we discovered he was doing 2 different ones, and had one he increased the nitrogen and it killed the seedlings, but it made the sprouts do really well, but the seedlings didn't like that high level of nitrogen. So that's the stuff that he's trying to get balanced, so people can take that info back and use it the way it needs to be for whatever plant you're growing, because you'll know different plants have different nutrient requirements. So
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Any other questions? So we decided to do with this where we do some round robin and share some exciting ideas right at the beginning. And then one of us will give a presentation about something we're working on at each of our monthly meetings, and we'll determine that at the previous meeting. But we asked Nakira to put together a little a presentation. She had one already ready to go about just a basic introduction to hydroponics and different types of systems, and something that they use. We thought this would be a nice starter presentation. We want to make this meeting always something you can learn something new and take it back with you to share, or some kind of cool information, or just hearing what people are working on in a little bit more formal way. So Nakira, I'm host, so you can try hitting the share screen button, and it probably will prompt me to, are you ready for this?
Yep.
Okay, so hit the
Okay,
share
let
screen
me-
and see if it.
let me see.
Let's see if I can go to participants and make you.
Okay.
I'm going to make you a co-host in the way that you could do it.
Okay.
That works? Okay.
Mhm.
Give it a try. Oh, I see it. Yay.
Okay.
Oh, this worked.
Cool,
Perfect.
cool. So I will, let me see if I can't. Something over. Get myself sorted here. Okay. Do you guys see it or no? Yeah.
We see presenter view.
Oh, we see. Oh, you see presenter view. Oh man, my computers are backwards. Well, I might just see if I can't leave like this. I can't figure.
If you just go to the display settings, I think when it was in full screen, you can swap
swap.
presenter and
How's that? Is that swapped?
Beautiful.
Yes, perfect.
Sweet. Okay. Now let me pull up. Okay. So let me go through this. I like introductions, and I kind of assumed this was going to be how it is, but everybody kind of seems to know hydroponic things, right? So I won't kind of delve too much into some of the basics here, but I made this presentation here at AVI for some of our educational content that we're doing, some stuff that we're going to have produced online. So we're going to record this, and then it will be uploaded in some different modules online. So there's some supplemental documents that go along with this that I've made. But this is kind of the basic like 101 hydroponics presentation that we have put together. Yeah, and so this is coming from my background of like different types of hydroponic systems, and then my major is agricultural engineering, so I'm kind of like the the technical tools and fun stuff nerds. So I like that stuff. And then also I've done a lot of soils and crops. So there's some emphasis a little bit on like, what do your plants need to survive, water, nutrients, some of that more like background information, because I think especially for hydroponics in Alaska, like knowing some of that background stuff helps before you like nosedive into things, so that less goes wrong, or there's less, things to, there's still learning in the process, of course, but kind of less flopping around, I guess, as you go through it. So this kind of just shows like hydroponics. Let's see. Hold on. I think there we go. Hold on. Okay. Like the benefits per se of hydroponics, especially for up here, like when you have a hydroponic system, in a lot of ways you are able to control it. More specifically, you are able to control exactly what goes into your system. You're allowed to make things cleaner, hopefully reduce pests. It's more accessible to a lot of people. I have seen situations where if you have like hydroponics indoors in greenhouses, then anybody can go out and do it. Like at my school, we had someone who was in a wheelchair, and their ramps could go to all the hydroponics and all of the greenhouse. So just things like that, that hydroponics makes more accessible, and in a lot of ways reduces some of your inputs, and in Alaska can be really beneficial, especially for like the all year growing and the increased yields and things like that. So this, I gotta replace this image because we actually got the full image, but has kind of the 6 main hydroponics types, and there are some combinations of different ones, especially new hydroponic systems coming out that are a little bit of combination of the 2 different ones, but some of these are active, some of these are passive. Of course, most people probably know like your deep water system versus a wick system, where something's passively drawing water from a wet location to a dry location. Your drip system, like the zip towers, has water going in the top and gravity feeds it down. Ebb and flow, a lot of the bucket systems that you see, right? You fill and then drain over time. Aeroponics uses misters, and then the NFT is really common for kind of that film of water that goes through and feeds your plants. So I just have pictures on here, the different ones. I think it's really good for some of the visualizing things. And I put the wick system and the deep water well in kind of the same broad category, because although they're not identically the same, they're similar in a lot of capacities. They're both passive, both involve a big water reservoir and your plants tapping straight into that. So then the drip system, I also have put in lots of different types of plants, because I want people, like, especially if this presentation is being given to someone who is totally new to hydroponics, who doesn't really know the capacity and capabilities, you can see you can grow things like melons or strawberries, and there's lots of different plants that can be done, that lots of people do different things just because they want different plants to eat. So the drip system too, you can see that vertically, those vertical towers have drip emitters at the top, versus this is more of like there is some sort of a medium that the plants are growing in, and it has tubes running that are dripping. So this one is somewhere in the middle between hydroponics and like an outdoor soil system, but I kind of put it in there just because it's fun, and it fits the criteria, I think. The ebb and flow, you've probably seen this vertically, or you can see it in the buckets. So if you have those buckets, it's more of like a horizontal on the ground version of that. But the vertical system, I like when I was working at City Farms, they use the vertical system for sprouting seeds, because it's kind of a smaller space. You're not like needing the plants to grow full out in that. So we could pack a lot of seeds in a small area. The water would flood to the top and then drain to the next one, the next one, next one. But you can also do like ebb and flow, I think is great for some of those bigger plants that require longer longevity in the roots, as opposed to like NFT is kind of designed for more of a short-term grow. But, yeah, so the NFT, right, you'll see like those kind of at an angle rails, the water goes down. I think almost everybody in here said they had them. And each of the hydroponic systems too, like when I'm telling somebody about hydroponics, or like a lot of times they'll ask like, which ones do you like, which ones do you don't like? It kind of just depends on what you're doing, right? Like what plants you want to grow, and also what it is that's most important. So like sometimes I talk about like an NFT system, if you're running water on it all the time, your pump's running all the time, means you're using a lot of energy. So for up here, sometimes that works good if you want to like grow high mass greens, but sometimes if you're wanting to conserve energy, you kind of need to choose something else or find a way to tone back your energy. So just like pros and cons of different systems, I have some of them outlined just for me, what I think, and what we've figured. So I think that's good to talk about, especially for people who are brand new to hydroponics. But I'm sure each person has, like, everybody's done hydroponics a little bit, so you've kind of developed your own perspectives on which ones work and don't work, and pros and cons of them. So aeroponics too, like, I know we have a lettuce grow system. I think that was mentioned maybe once or twice. I've heard that technically described as a vertical NFT. I think someone described it that, because the water flows down, but that shape is what you think of when you think of aeroponics a lot of the time. I've also seen it done horizontally, just with those misting emitters, but kind of that vertical stacking is what a lot of people think of when they think of like an aeroponics tower. So then this graphic I put together, and this is one I like to use. I think we put it in a different hydroponics presentation that we had made also, of like, when you think of a plant, what does the plant need to live? And so I put things in these variables for my head to comprehend. And also, like, a lot of people are running different experiments, doing different testing, so you can separate these variables and test one of them. Like Mel was talking about the nutrition, right? Like the grocery store label, in the bottom, like plants need food, people need food, same thing. Like you can experiment with that one variable, keeping everything else, somewhat the same, to see how that will change or what impacts it. And like nutrition, you can use to impact how your plants grow a lot. So we have that one. And then your sunlight, of course, different lighting makes a big difference. And especially in energy costs also, if you're going to have a system that is more efficient use of light, more plants in a space, or if you need more lights for each individual bucket, or, just things to think about. Especially like, kind of the way I have our course designed is for people who would want to design and or get their own hydroponic system. So you want people to think of these individual things. And like, this is what I like to think about too, if I'm going to go into a new hydroponics project. Each of these things, how do we think about it? How do we make sure the plant has each of these? And what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Same thing with water. Plants also need air. That's why some of those like deep water systems, you have to think of, how do the plants get air still? Like, how do we keep the algae from growing? And then plants need some sort of a home, and that home could be air, right? It can be like a basket suspended in air, or it could be clay pellets, or it could be cocoa coir, it could be all these different things. But you do need some sort of a place for your plants to be. So, and then on that realm of something for your plants to live in, we have listed some of the different media. People have their different favorites on which ones work, and different ones work better in different systems. So it's just, again, like when I'm telling people about hydroponics or presenting something, like variables that I think people should think about before they get something hydroponics. Like, how are you going to meet this need for your plant? So, and then this one's for lighting. Like, you'll have different types of lights. Are you trying to experiment with colors of lightings? Like when I was with Lori at Space Farm, you could change the type of light and it would actually impact the way your plants tasted. And so like, that is a very real thing that you can change. Like if you have red light versus blue light, versus if you have full spectrum light, that it was noticeable flavor differences, right? So is that something you want to experiment with? Are you going for flavor and for finding this fun, spacey, we called it look, or is it just like, how do we be most energy efficient and produce the most amount of food? So, and then in terms of nutrition, this is a graph I really like to use. I forget, this was one of the universities. This one actually might be from Purdue, which is where I went. But your plants need nutrition, and whether that's from kind of a compostee organic source like we were talking about, or whether that's kind of your chemical fertilizers. And of course, fertilizer is a big issue here for everybody, and something that we need to look towards. You still need to meet these requirements for your plants, and I think a lot of people don't have this, like, I don't know, I like soils and I like soil judging, and that's one of my things that I really enjoy. But I think you have to have that still like soil chemistry understanding in hydroponics, even though it looks different. So that's why, of course, like when you have hydroponics, the pH is so important, because if your pH goes one side or the other, then your plants don't have the nutrition they need. So when we have even in ours, you have to adapt and understand what your plants are saying. So like our plants started having that interveinal yellowing and getting some splotches, right? And ultimately it was a magnesium deficiency in basil, which is pretty common if your pH is a little bit off. So our pH needed to come back down because our magnesium wasn't available for our basil plants. And basil is a little more susceptible to it. But anyways, just some of those things to think about, like what we are doing outside with growing, we have to somewhat replicate that for our hydroponics plants or find a way to meet those same requirements. So anyways, I just like this quote. I just try and throw these in there because I think hydroponics can be overwhelming. Like everybody have like stepped into it a little bit. For someone who's totally new, it's a lot of things to think about. And so I just like, I think a step at a time for your hydroponics. And I don't think there's an expectation that you're going to like get it all right. Like your plants are probably going to die. You're going to get a fungal disease in your plants. There's going to be something that goes wrong, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you learn and then maybe you prevent it the next time or you spot it earlier the next time and stop it. So I think like thinking through some of these things before you dig into hydroponics is really good, but then also learning and just going one step at a time is just as important. So anyways, I kind of ran through that just because I think most people know hydroponics things, but that's the presentation we have started. And then we have some other stuff going in our office, like we have a different presentation that we gave last week at our conference about energy efficiency and testing some of those variables and using technology to monitor that and to implement changes or to extrapolate to different places across Alaska. So lots of different things. I think it's cool to hear what everybody is doing because everybody has their own little different niche, but that was just kind of the baseline and a resource that we could use for people who are new to hydroponics or need some more of that background thinking to go through.
Nice job, Nakira. Lots of good info. A good presentation. Anybody else want to ask a question, Nakira?
This is Duke again. Hey, what color light gave you the best flavor?
It depended on the plant for me, but it was very interesting. I'm trying to think of the specific example of which plants. Like it changed, like if you've grown sorrel or sorrel, it changed the flavor of those. Like we had red veined and we also had the green veined, and they did taste different. Those different species taste different, but then under different lights, they also had different ones. So like, I think the strength of the sourness differed, and similarly with spiciness, you could get one, but I can't remember exactly which plant it was. But mustard, yeah, we did grow lots of mustard greens, and I think some of them were a lot more spicy, and a lot of it's the nutrition too, which makes sense. But yeah, we did all sorts of fun stuff over there.
So the guy who was our original farmer for the USDA grant did a whole bunch of testing of different lights and trying to decide, was it worth buying the more expensive lights or what was going to work best. And he actually came down to that just your regular LED shop lights worked just fine with lettuce. When you're dealing with a little bit more higher nutrition needing plants like tomatoes and other things, having a little bit more spectrum on it is fine and much better. But for someone just doing it in their home, they don't need to buy a $500 light. They can get a very inexpensive one and it'll work just fine as long as it says daylight. That's the key that he discovered is anything but like any of the cool white lights did not work well. And so he did a bunch of testing of your garden variety stuff you could get at Lowe's or Home Depot or the cheapy stuff that you could get shipped in. But if it said daylight, it was perfectly fine regardless of it. So just give you that feedback for people who are looking for something that way. They don't want to spend money on the high powered plant lights that they feel like if they're doing hydroponics they need. But simple, if you're doing high level stuff like Sarah's doing, you really want to make sure you've got good lights when you're going bigger. But like a small system, you don't have to stress too much about the lights as well. What he discovered. Anyway, that was just our experience with it. And we discovered a really cheap type of light you could buy off of Amazon and get like 4-footers for less than $80. And they work fabulous. So we've been recommending those to folks because they have a really good light spectrum. They say plant light and they're not super expensive. So if you want to know what those are, I'm happy to share. They're Barina lights. We tried a couple of different ones, but those ones seem to work. And they're not terrible to have to look at if they're vertical and you have to face them. We found people were telling us that like the ones that had the more blue and red spectrum just hurt your eyes when you had to stare at them. So just some other. Sarah, do you have any experience with that? Things you've changed?
For lights.
Yeah. What's your experience with light?
Well, we had a very standard like formula we would use for a long time. Like for our herbs and our lettuce, we would just keep it the same. For our lights, we have the capability of kind of changing some of the settings. We've got a red, blue, and white spectrum. Each of those kind of bring out something new in the plant. The blues were like a balancer. The red brings out flowers, which is helpful if you're working with something that you want to flower. If you don't want it to bulge, you can just turn that down. And then, wait, sorry, the white is the balancer. And the blue is more for kind of their structure and development. We haven't changed it too much. We've just kind of fixed it so that we have our plants getting more of what they need exactly and tailoring it to their needs. But we didn't play around with much more than, is this gonna stop the plant from bolting? I was very surprised to hear about the taste. It makes sense. I think it'd be cool to get into.
We discovered that when it comes to taste, different varieties grow differently with like we had a couple of different mini romaines. One that did really well in our deep water culture system. It tasted awesome in there, but it did terrible in the NFT and it tasted terrible in there. So different structures made it taste differently. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience. Anybody's had that experience.
With the
Same
same
plant.
nutrients and same lights.
Oh, sorry.
Same nutrients, same lights, but just different system. NFT versus deep water culture. Interesting idea. Worth experimenting. That's one of the reasons we got into it with Ag in the Classroom, is this is perfect stuff for STEM, for kids doing exploration and different types of experiments, figuring out what works. And so the kids have been really excited about trying different growing systems, and then how does it taste? How does it grow? What's the factors? So it's kind of cool to play around with that.
This is making me think about our Hydro Lab. We have a portion of the greenhouse set aside for people to experiment, not necessarily just with hydroponics, but different methods of growing in general. And sounds like a great opportunity to explore the lighting and see the difference that it could make. Kind of get a better understanding of it too.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that
because
idea.
I know I bought some, I guess, lights from Amazon, and I found they were really only good for seed starting. They weren't good for the growth. So I have 12 of them that are good for seed starting, but nothing else really.
Interesting. Well, I would love, and one of the things we talked about was like writing a lot of this stuff down and having it all of our experience is available, so anybody who's looking for information can find it on the food policy website. So once we get our stuff with the compost tea going, and if you guys want to add anything, that's what Leah's here. We can add it to our page. So when people are going to Food Policy Council and get some information, and also get redirected back to whatever information you have available, back to your website, and support your organizations. And so this is a really nice reason for having this group, and I am so glad you guys are all here. We have about 4 minutes left, and I want to be cognizant of everybody's time because we said we were going to be an hour. I want to stick to that. But I would love to hear if there's somebody in the group who would like to do a presentation for next month's meeting. Who would like to do one? I'm happy to jump in. I know, Max, are you going to be here next month? I know Robbie said she might not be here next month.
Yeah, we have our rural forum next, the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of March. And Robbie and Sundance are actually going to be there with us.
Okay.
So it's our big rural leadership gathering that we do twice a year. So we won't be here next month.
Maybe April though. We could do it.
Okay. We'll put you guys down for April. We'll think about that. Kaylee, would you like to do a presentation next month?
I was just going to unmute to say that I'm feeling very slammed this spring, so I don't want to sign myself up and not to put you on the spot, but I would love to hear about some of the education pieces.
Sure.
A presentation about curriculum, I think would be great.
Okay. We could, if there's anybody else who wants to do it, I'm happy to give next month, but let me know. If not, I'll happily jump in and talk about how to find some of our hydroponic education resources and how you can make use of them and help us out, make them better.
For being the test gummy and giving a full overview. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see everyone's expertise on this.
Yep. And so just to catch up, one of the things that we're talking about doing is all of these recordings, we're going to set up a YouTube channel and then have them accessible so people can look at our meeting notes. We'll make it a private YouTube channel so we can send the invitation so it's not out there on the web and you don't have to worry about someone catching your YouTube and using you for anything nefarious. So that was one of the thoughts that we had at our planning meeting, and hopefully we'll have that up and running either next month or the month after, and then those links we'll share with those that ask for, and we'll put that up on the website that you can ask either me or Leah if you're interested in. You can show that you're in Alaska. How's that sound, Leah? I think rather than posting them up on the website, but just having any of our downloadable information up on the website, but the recordings of our meetings, we won't do that. We'll do it as a private YouTube channel. Any other thoughts or ideas about that?
I think also it would be great if people are comfortable with when they're giving presentations, if they even want to just share slide decks. Like anything we can share out externally is always great, but obviously like within the parameters of what you guys are comfortable with. But I'm here to share out the work you guys are doing. So whatever you want to share it.
Well, that's great. And if anybody has other thoughts or ideas of how we can make this group really be functional and work for everybody who's here and getting what you need out of this, just let me or Sarah know, because we'll make sure that happens. All right. Well, thanks. Anybody else want to say anything else for the good of the order before we call the meeting end?
Good turnout for the first meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mel, for a great job.
Yeah, thanks.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Wonderful. Thanks, you guys all. Have a great rest of your week.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. Bye.